This story is rather special. This story was created by you in the chat, and I may have added stuff to it, but I want to especially thank Jay Accent. He provided a lot of very poetic prose to this, as well as the chat itself. I mean, this turned out really well. I'm actually quite proud of it, and I'm proud of all of you for helping us create this. The creativity came from the chat, from this community, and I think that is a wondrous thing. So without further ado, Walker by you, the community. The wolf sat on its haunches, licking the coppery blood from its fangs. The body that lay before the bitch wolf lay before her, ripped and torn. The echoes of the man's dying cries continued to provide her grim satisfaction. The change came slowly, an insidious power that had possessed her, resisting her own control. Power of any kind has a price, but this power was darkness, and darkness would never let go. The change was painful, skin splitting and sloughing away, ripping her nerves, filling her mind with absolute and unqualified pain. It felt like her bones were breaking as her hide tore and ripped. There was nothing in her experience to compare it to. Night had fallen, a blanket of stars scarring the sky. A cry echoed off into the distance, a sign. The cry was neither human nor animal, but something foreign, not of this world, something of the dark. Sina, naked and gasping, felt a cool breeze against her blood-ridden skin, surrounded by acres of wildness, nothing but a lone mule in the darkness to bear witness. "What have you done?" a man's voice asked as someone approached. Sina jerked around. She smelled him before he came close, her fiancé, trampling horse. He was worried, she could tell, and he was searing with judgment, though she could no longer see his beautiful and caring eyes. Guilt hit her as she glanced down to where the body should have been before her, and it almost overwhelmed her of what she had done. She could only remember bits and pieces of the mauling she'd given to the old shaman. The story those bits and pieces of memory told was of ravening hunger, unhampered rage, and brutal finality. The story froze her soul, if she had one any longer. Another voice, deep and gravelly, came from nowhere. "She is fulfilling your bargain as a testimony to her master." Trampling horse spun around, trying to find the source of the voice, but the only visible life was the mule. "Master," he snorted, the engulfing darkness of the night. "Who's master?" he demanded. The silence forced Trampling Horse to realize that the voice was not a physical thing, but a projection of thought, an interloper of dreams. Sina shook her head, causing the long, dark hair, typical of her Native American heritage, to come down and cover her face, fortunately disguising the renewed guilt. "It's done," she said. "Indeed," the ominous voice stated in the vast growing darkness. "No," Trampling Horse argued. He turned to his love and made his voice and demeanor as grave as he could. "Get rid of it." He placed his hands roughly on her shoulders. "Skinwalkers, it is of the witchery way. It is evil, and I will demand more and more of you." The inhuman laughter of the detached voice rose and then faded away. Sina wouldn't look up into his eyes, even if she could have. "Give it up?" She shook her head again and motioned toward the direction she remembered the body of the old shaman. "Look at what I've done. The sheer power." She paused, thinking. "We can use it. Get off this damn reservation. We can finally get out from under the thumb of Sam and that damn casino." She had Just another moment to calm herself inside the eternal darkness she had been banished to. And when I'm changed, she finally brought her head up so he could see her milky white eyes. I can see again. Trampling Horse looked into her damaged eyes and shook his head in turn. The witchery way is evil, Sin. You cannot use power like that for good. We are too corruptible. She sneered, something that caused Trampling Horse to take a step back. Is it? She asked with anger and heat in her voice. Or is it the ones who use the power for evil? Like guns. It isn't the gun, it's the person. She bowed her head again and lowered her voice so that it was almost a whisper. Why give up something I've been trying to find my whole life? Power over my own destiny. And even though he knew she couldn't see him, he raised his hands in mock surrender. Will you come and talk with Walks with Spirit at least? You don't fucking understand, she growled. You can see it all, everything I took for granted. You get to see the gold of the morning light, the green of the clover in the grass, the deep blue sky marred only by the occasional cloud. She reached out for him, her lover, her friend, her partner. I can't even see the person I love most in my life. He placed a hand back on her shoulder, then let us go to Walks with Spirit. Perhaps things have changed, and he can help you now. I don't know. She shook her head. He said he couldn't fix it before. What possibly could have changed? Sina asked. Is it your sight? Is having your sight worth losing everything else you have? He asked her gently. He picked up her head and gently taking her chin in his hand, he touched it smooth and caring. Even me? Sina didn't answer him. Her milky eyes went wide, even more if possibly unfocused. She began to shake her head, but then remembered the blood, the cries for mercy she had not heeded, and even her own overwhelming hate. The craving to shift again almost took her over completely and by surprise, but she managed to force it away. Memories flowed, the little she could recall from the attack. They came as she struggled, memories of oaths she and Trampling Horse had made, to the love one another shared, the paths they'd taken together, the laughter, the love, and the fun they shared in their lives. They lived in poverty, true, but Trampling Horse almost made her forget that. Almost. Okay, she said, her tone feeble, and let him lead her away, the skin of a wolf gripped in her trembling hands. The lone mule watched the pair leave the field from the shadows of the trees. If a mule could have expressed an amused expression, the one that watched them go would have. The old man sat cross-legged on a patch of bare earth. It was little more than a sandstone patch when they reached him. Without even opening his eyes, his gravelly voice commented, "Sit." Walks with Spirit waited for them to get comfortable, then spoke. You have your revenge. Sina looked up startled. No, but he held up a hand. Do you think you can walk on the land bearing the evil you bear without someone noticing? He said, his eyes still shut. A snort sounded from the direction of Trampling Horse, and Sina's anger flared. And what have you done, old man? What did the elders do? He took my eyes, and what was the consequence? He was stripped of all his responsibility, child, his job, his place among us, to be destitute forever. A living punishment you have now released him from, the old man stated in a harsh and unforgiving tone. Sina was silent. She'd never thought about it that way. I had to do something, she finally murmured. Walks with Spirit opened his eyes, and though she could not see them, there was sympathy there. I do not blame you, child, he expressed the sympathy with his voice that she could not see. But the bargain you made will destroy all of us. What can we do to get rid of it? Trampling Horse asked. The old man turned to him. That depends. On what? Trampling Horse demanded, his frustration notable. The old man turned to Sina, his eyes locking on her. Whether she can let it go or not. And why should I? She asked. I have the power to protect myself now. I have the power to protect all of us. Why should I not use it? Walksworth's spirit shook his head slowly. Because of where it comes from, child. Because of what it will turn you into. Because what is wrong is always wrong. Taking life, if you can avoid it, evil, darkness is always evil. Can you give me back my sight? Can you do that? Because I'm willing to stay a wolf or a bear or bird if I can see again, Sina said. The old man's voice was startled. Is that what you think this will turn you into? Is that truly what you think? He was dumbfounded. She sat there silently. This monster you have bound yourself to will make you like a mirror of itself. And then, when your usefulness is done, will throw you away to become a blind and unthinking creature that feeds on none but human flesh. Is that what you want? Is that what you would release upon your people? Of course not, she said, her voice shocked. Walsh's spirit closed his eyes again and nodded. Then, if you are willing, let us try. In the darkness that was her whole world now, Sina heard music, an ancient tune of drums and wooden pipes. She didn't know how, but she could feel the people, her ancestors, her family, her friends, with her, around her, holding her. Not just the ones still on the earth, but the ones who had already gone back and become one with the land, her ancestors. She could feel the change. Something was being ripped away from her, and it tried to cling and struggle to hold on with its cold and clammy claws. The pain was intense. The pain, that is the evil. It will not let you go unless you demand it, he told her in her mind. You must be the one who decides. Choose and pit your will against that of the darkness. She struggled. Sina felt her back arch. She didn't know how to fight. She'd never had to pit her will against anything. The music picked up in tempo, the drums taking over completely, and walks with Spirit's voice rising and lowering in ancient forms. Vivid memories flooded through her childhood, her parents, her awkward teenage years, and then other memories, ones not her own, invaded her mind. You are strong. Remember, when you could not eat, you went and got food. When you could not afford to pay the electric bill, you did without. And you still persevere. Memories of blood, of hate, of carnage, and the arousal of fetid and spoiled pleasure from the pain and suffering of the innocent, the ripping and gnawing and tearing of human flesh, combined with a feeling that could only be described in Sina's mind as sexual desire. Fear, her fear, of the glimpse of what she bound herself to, overcame her, and it gave her will a focus. And for the first time, she felt her own power, a power she'd not known before, within her come forward. She didn't push the darkness away. She couldn't. She was disgusted and yet drawn to it. Instead, she took hold of it, her mind forming into the beast and shackled and chained it. On instinct, she turned the creature's method against it and bombarded it with her own best memories of her love, of her parents, of her walking a trampling horse. The love of the outdoors, the joy of family, the fun she had with her brothers, and the joy of her first kiss. On and on she forced her best life forward, her sacrifices for others, the selflessness, the goodness in her heart, her true spirit, her light in its purest form. She knew not how long she sat there, but when she opened her eyes, she could see the smiling face of the old man, lost with spirit. She could see. You said it could be done, she cried, her tears streaming down her face. I said, he smirked, I could not help you. You did this. What? Trembling Horse demanded. All he did was hum for a few minutes, rocking back and forth. As I said, the old man said, she did it. I did nothing but guide her. She is not free of the power, but she has chained it and made it her own. And in the dark, a man once called Samuel stood. The inhuman voice said, and now you will kill the traitorous woman and seal our pact. And that was a story written by you guys, our community. I hope to be able to have the time to do more of these writing streams, because in 3 sessions, we just wrote something that I think could move people. That a person, showing a person who is downtrodden, who is handicapped, who is forced into a darkness, take control and use her own light to chain that darkness away. And I think my return after about a month of being too busy to write, this is a very appropriate story. I hope you enjoy it. This is actually for you. It's a gift. And it's a gift you've given us, me in particular. And I truly appreciate all of you. Now remember, your life is your story, and make it a great one. And I hope to see you again soon. Good night.